Family, welcome back to the Royal Sussex Squad, the home where truth lives, where lies get dismantled, and where Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are defended with facts, love and fire. Today, we've got something juicy. We're diving into Ian Wilson's column in the Daily Mail. Yes, I know, the Daily Fail. But stay with me, because this one exposes cracks in William's public image like never before. The headline says it all. Prince William is incensed by any notion of a comeback for Harry. Now let's stop right there. Think about that. Imagine being the so-called future King of England, heir to the throne, and your biggest problem, the thing that makes you lose weight, look angry at funerals, stomp around with your jaw clenched, is not running a monarchy, not global diplomacy, not a cost of living crisis in your country, but the possibility that your younger brother, Prince Harry, might be welcomed back into the fold by the very people who should have never driven him out in the first place. See, this tells us something important. It tells us that William is obsessed. He's obsessed with Harry's popularity, Harry's relatability, Harry's ability to connect with people in a way William has never been able to. And when you're obsessed, you're not leading, you're not working. You're not embodying the spirit of service. You're consumed by jealousy and bitterness. The article paints William as a man under pressure, as if the weight of the monarchy is crushing him. At the Duchess of Kent's funeral, the report says he looked gaunt, angry, carrying the world's burden on his shoulders. But let's be clear here. This isn't the weight of duty. This is the weight of resentment. This is a man who cannot handle the fact that his younger brother has carved out his own destiny, away from the shackles of an institution that tried to destroy him and his wife. And here's the kicker. Wilson points out that King Charles, Harry and William's own father, has always favoured Harry. That's right. Charles saw in Harry something special, something human, something full of heart and courage. And William? He's been salty about that his entire life. That's why, to this very day, William is allegedly incensed at the idea of Harry having a comeback, of Harry reconnecting with Charles. Because for William, it was always a competition. He was always measuring himself against Harry and always falling short. And what do William's defenders in the press do? Instead of holding him accountable for his laziness, his lack of diplomacy, his arrogance and his entitlement, they spin. They give him glowing write-ups for doing the bare minimum. School runs, staged photo ops, a handshake here, a cattle call picture there. Meanwhile, Harry shows up in the UK for 4 days, meets with his father, connects with the people, and suddenly William looks like the weak link. That's the real issue here. Now, family, let's talk about one of the nastiest parts of this narrative. The disgusting suggestion that Harry somehow caused King Charles and Catherine's illnesses. Yes, you heard that right. Wilson actually mentions that some are blaming the stress from Harry's so-called betrayal as a factor in their cancers. That is vile. That is cruel. That is tabloid trash at its worst. Illness is not caused by a son choosing to protect his wife and children. Illness is not caused by a man refusing to be abused by the media and his own family. That is the palace trying to weaponize sympathy against Harry and Meghan, and we are not buying it. And then we have William's fury over Harry's popularity. The article admits that Harry's trip back to Britain was a success, that the people miss him, that the energy around him is magnetic, and that his attempts at reconciliation with Charles should be welcomed. And what does that do to William? It drives him mad. Because for William, popularity isn't earned, it's supposed to be inherited. He thought he could coast into admiration, but admiration is earned through authenticity, through service, through love. Harry has it, William doesn't. Simple as that. Wilson also touches on William's vacations. 5 family holidays in 7 months. Now listen, no one begrudges him for wanting to spend time with his children while his wife is ill. But the problem is this. William has always been lazy. He has always done the bare minimum. And now, instead of stepping up when his country actually needs him, he's retreating. And commentators like Tina Brown are pointing it out, calling him work-shy. That's not Harry's fault. That's William's choice. Let's not forget this part, William's so-called lack of deference to his father. According to insiders, William forgets the hierarchy, acts as though he's already king, and shows no respect to Charles. Isn't it funny? The same man who demands absolute deference from his brother, the same man who wanted Harry to know his place in the hierarchy, can't even show that same respect to his own father. Hypocrisy much. And then there's William's casual attitude toward royalty itself. He told interviewers he doesn't want to be a royal with a capital R, but family, you can't play casual when you're about to be king. You can't say I'll just wing it when your entire role is to embody the institution. Meanwhile, Queen Elizabeth took it seriously every single day of her reign. She worked, she believed, she understood the duty. William? He wants the title, the perks, the duchy millions, but not the service. Speaking of the duchy, let's talk money. £23 million per year from the Duchy of Cornwall. 23 million, while his country faces poverty, food banks, crumbling services and despair. And what does William give back? About 107 engagements a year. That's laughable. That's insulting. And yes, as Wilson points out, when public sympathy runs out, when people start asking the hard questions, William will be exposed. The monarchy itself will be questioned. And who will be blamed? Not Harry, not Meghan, William, family. Do you see what's happening here? This whole article, while dressed up as sympathy for William, is really a warning. The establishment knows he is failing. They know he lacks faith, lacks charisma, lacks work ethic. And they know that Harry's very existence is a threat to William's shaky image. That's why the attacks on Harry and Meghan never stop, because the more Harry shines, the more William fades. But let me tell you this, Harry and Meghan don't need a comeback. They never left. They built their own empire. They live on their own terms. They have global platforms, Netflix deals, Archewell, Invictus Games, philanthropy, and most importantly, freedom. They don't need the institution. The institution needs them. And that right there is why William is incensed. Because without Harry to distract the public, William's flaws are glaring. So when you hear the tabloids trying to drag Harry into every crisis, whether it's Charles's health, Kate's illness, or the monarchy's shaky future, remember the truth. Harry is not the problem. Harry is the mirror. He reflects what true service looks like. He reflects what genuine love looks like. And in that reflection, William sees his own shortcomings. That's why he's angry. That's why he's bitter. That's why he's losing it. Family, what do you think? Is William's obsession with Harry the monarchy's downfall? Is Harry living his best life while the firm crumbles from within? Drop your thoughts in the comments because you know we're going to unpack this together. And Wilson. Prince William is incensed by any notion of a comeback for Harry. In recent months, Prince William has been getting some of the worst press he's gotten in years. You'd have to go back to the pre-Sussex days to find a time when William was being battered this heavily by his domestic media. It's well deserved, though, and long overdue. I honestly believe that the energy around William, not to mention William himself, would not have gotten this bad if he had been facing the consequences of his own terrible decisions for years. Instead of saying, actually, William is horrible for what he did to Harry and Meghan, the press has busied itself with covering for him and excusing him. Instead of saying, actually, William's schedule belies his laziness, they've gone overboard to praise him for prioritising the school run. Instead of saying, actually, he's a diplomatic lightweight and it's a huge problem, they've embiggened him and his pitiful international efforts, giving him every gold star they can for all of his big boy statesmanship, like shaking hands with the UN Gensec at a cattle call photo op. Well, the Mail's Anne Wilson is on the case. This column is amazing. Some highlights William's demeanour at the Duchess of Kent's funeral. There was no mistaking the fact that William appeared angry and unhappy at the Duchess of Kent's funeral at Westminster Cathedral this week. He looked to have lost weight too. He gave the impression of bearing the burden of the world on his shoulders. The main reason for William's apparent discomfiture, Prince Harry, William's younger brother, is evidently trying to make a comeback. A few days before Trump's visit, Harry embarked on his 4-day pseudo-royal tour of Britain. He also had tea with their father, and it seemed as if the slow process of a reconciliation had begun. Reconciliation, that is, between the king and his wayward prodigal son, not reconciliation between Harry and William. Of the two sons, Harry was always the boy favoured by Charles, which is one of the factors that has made Harry's breach with the royal family so especially painful for the king. William is incensed by any notion of a comeback for Harry. The sense of betrayal he feels cannot be overestimated. Harry abandoned him and Kate as well as the firm. They're still trying to blame Harry for Charles and Kate's cancer. Some have suggested that the stress caused by the savagery of Harry's treatment of his own family might have contributed to either the King's or Catherine's cancer. Whether true or not, imagine that thought playing on William's mind. William is furious that Harry is still popular. How galling it would have been for the heir to the throne to see commentators in the press suggest Harry's 4-day trip to Britain was a roaring success, a reminder of the cheeky chappy royal we have missed, and that his attempts at reconciliation should be welcomed. Tina Brown's claim that Charles is pissed at his lazy heir. In the past 7 months, the Waleses have had 5 confirmed family vacations, a fact seized on gleefully by Miss Brown, a former editor of Vanity Fair and The New Yorker, to suggest William was work-shy. It would, of course, be a cruel person who did not feel that the Prince of Wales deserved considerable sympathy. His wife has cancer, and both she and William have suffered all the strains this imposes, both on their own relationship and on that with their 3 young children. What is more, those who sing the national anthem, hoping that Charles will be long to reign over us, do so in the sadly realistic knowledge that the present reign might in fact not be as long as we would wish. William therefore faces the prospect of becoming king when he is still a relatively young man. 4 decades and more of public duty stretch ahead. Why would he not prioritise family life in such circumstances and spend precious time with George, Charlotte and Louis? William's lack of deference. It is becoming apparent that William likes to do things his way, or, as a senior member of the royal household who has observed the father-son dynamic put it, as direct heir, he sometimes seems to forget, whether by accident or design, that there is a hierarchy and that he ranks one below his father. Another source claimed that deference does not appear to be in his vocabulary when it comes to the king. Casual peg. When Queen Elizabeth II died, there was an outpouring of grief which did, quite genuinely, unite the nation, but united us in the recognition that we revered her dutiful acceptance of the burden and responsibility of her office without question. William appears to want things to be more casual. He told one interviewer that he would never be royal with a capital R, yet if you are Prince of Wales, royal with a capital R is what you are. William's atheism. Queen Elizabeth was a woman of faith. Her Christianity defined her entire attitude to life. Charles, bafflingly, has said he wants to be the defender of faiths. None of us can guess what this is supposed to mean, and when we watch him entertaining fire worshippers and witch doctors in the gardens of Highgrove, we would probably rather not ask too deeply. But William has made it clear that he is not a believer. Nothing wrong with this if we are talking of him as a private individual. But again, as with the military, it is part of the job specification that the monarch is supreme governor of the church. The heavy concerns of history are bearing down on William. Can he adjust the monarchy as he wants to? Can he do so while retaining public affection for the institution? The Duchy money. Above all, to my mind, does he feel queasy about the £23 million per annum he derives from the Duchy of Cornwall? Because by hanging on to the loot, he could jeopardise the monarchy. When the public is in love with the royal family, it is prepared to overlook their besetting sin, which is conspicuous consumption and lavish living. Does the king really need so many houses? The Castle of May, Birkhall, Sandringham and Highgrove. His properties in Romania are all privately owned, in addition to the palaces and castles which go with the job. If the public is in a mood to question the royals and their behaviour, as will happen once more when yet more revelations come out about Prince Andrew and the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, then they will rightly ask what on earth makes them think they are entitled to this vast amount of wealth, particularly if it is in return for just 107 engagements per year performed by a man who does not seem to relish the role. Ooh! Public sympathy for Kate and for the king, both of them visibly still far from well and deeply affected by Harry's egregious behaviour, is palpable. But sympathy for them in person is not the same as being sympathetic to the idea of what they stand for. The king-in-waiting needs to make a case for it if he is not to find himself booted out by a hostile public. Princess Diana once told me that during the English Civil War in the 1640s, her ancestor Earl Spencer had fought against the king on the side of Oliver Cromwell. This was historically untrue. In fact, that Earl Spencer died fighting in the royal cause. But, she went on to say to me, she did not think there would be a monarchy after Charles had died. William will need to work hard and employ his mother's radiant and irresistible charm if her prophecy is not to be fulfilled. Little wonder he seems so subdued, from the Daily Mail. Wilson also claims that William is already being eased into his future royal role. The king delegates more to him than many realise, and then Wilson cites this as an example. William now oversees the shoots at Balmoral and Sandringham, a key job among family roles. LMO. You guys, William's not lazy. He goes to meetings and organises the shoots on the private estates. The thing is, I do not believe William even does that. Overall, this piece is steeped in the palace talking points, but it's actually a huge warning. William isn't a man of faith, William is lazy, William lacks charisma, and if he's not careful, this whole thing will fall apart very quickly. And yeah, all of this is about Harry, I have no doubt. It was always about Harry. And before we go, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and support the channel through super thanks if you can. Every contribution keeps us going strong, keeps the Sussex truth alive, and keeps the haters pressed. This has been your Royal Sussex Squad, reminding you that Harry and Meghan are thriving. The truth always wins, and karma is undefeated.